The last time you saw us, we had just completed an almost 500-mile trip from Florida to Hayesville, North Carolina. We showed you some of the sights that we saw on the first part of our trip, including Brasstown Bald, which is the tallest peak in Georgia. And then now we're going to show you part 2 of our trip, where we are going to go to Bell Mountain. We're going to ride the train in Blue Ridge, and we're also going to show you all of our supercharging stats on our way back. But first, let's show you a little bit around the area where our cabin is, because it was really beautiful in the middle of fall.
I said, baby, I'm done. I'm so sick and tired of the way you just run. Say it takes two when you build that trust. I feel alone in the so-called love. I said, shawty, I'm done. Driving down this one-way road. Even with you, I'm alone. Trying to find my way back. When I move ahead, you stay back. Baby, I know we get lost. Love is always worth that cost. And I always play my part. But now I have to cut that cord. I said, baby, I'm done. I'm so sick and tired of the way you just run. Say it takes two when you build that trust.
One thing that we want to touch on very quickly before we continue on with our footage in Hayesville is that there was a news report that kind of troubled us recently when Hurricane Ian came through. Our local news actually reported that people should not evacuate from the hurricane in an electric vehicle and that it would not be safe to do so. And when that happened, we actually looked up on our Tesla, as you can see here, how many stalls were available and if there were issues charging your car, because the news had said that there weren't a lot of places to charge your car and that you could get stranded. So we looked, and there were only 2 out of many, many stalls that even had a wait time at all. The rest of them had open stalls. And so we found this to be very misleading. And this is a big part of why we chose to do our YouTube channel, is that there's a lot of bad press surrounding electric vehicles and Teslas, and especially with the full self-driving. There's always bad press. And this to us was almost dangerous for them to be misleading people in this way, because some people may only have an EV and they might not have a gas car. And so if they're being told that it's unsafe, they may choose to stay put in the way of a major hurricane. And that would be incredibly dangerous, especially with the fact that our Model 3 long range can go over 300 miles on a single charge. And Tesla sent us an alert that you can see here, that told us that you may want to charge your car to 100% because it's possible you may have to evacuate. And so at 100% charge and 300 miles, we could have gotten many cities away from the hurricane, not to mention that you could at very least get to a shelter or someplace with higher ground at 300 miles. And furthermore, there were plenty of stalls that we could have charged with if we wanted to go further than 300 miles. So it's just one of the many things that sometimes it is misrepresented. And I don't think the news was trying to do something wrong here. I think it just didn't understand how it works. And, it just, to tell people that they shouldn't evacuate, just didn't sit well with us. So we're going to show you how you can hop in your car. In our case, we're going to Hayesville, so you'll be able to see the different chargers along the way and how long the wait times are. But while we're showing that to you, that can also be translated into a way to plan like an evacuation route or in just a road trip. Okay, so when I was watching the news, I saw how they said not to take your EV because there's not enough superchargers and, you might get stuck and you shouldn't take it. But you said that there's a way that we can look and see how many superchargers there are on whatever route we're taking. Can you show us how to do that?
Yeah, certainly. So you just go into your map, and then this little icon that has the lightning bolt, if you turn that on, that'll load all of the superchargers. And the way this works is anything that is in your range based on how far you can drive with the current state of charge. So we're actually not fully charged right now. We're at 75%. And we can reach any of these charging stations that are shown here in red. So you can see here, there are plenty of charging options. And the number indicates how many open stalls there are at each of these superchargers. So there's really a plenty of different routes that you can take, plenty of different charger options that you can stop at. And one of the really large misconceptions is that if you were in a situation where you were stuck in traffic driving really slow, that you might not have enough range to get to your destination, where in fact Teslas actually do better driving slower. So the efficiency is actually dramatically increased when you're driving at a slower speed than where you are at highway speed. So you actually can get more range than what your car would normally get driving at highway speeds. And that's called hypermiling. And so you could actually sit in bumper to bumper traffic for quite some time and actually fare quite a bit better than an ICE car.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I've actually, in Florida, a lot of people run their gas car and in the heat with their AC running and sitting in traffic, and they're burning a lot of gas. And on top of that, a lot of the gas stations sell out of gas. That's like a very common problem in Florida. They sell out of gas because people over prepare and they buy up all the gas and then they get stuck that way. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
We were able to skip one of our charging stops because we used a dryer outlet and we were getting, you said 22 miles per gallon versus the 5
miles per hour.
I mean, I still have a gas car, so this is a struggle for me. Yes, 22 miles per hour using the dryer outlet. So he was able to charge up a little, give us just a little bit extra before we left the cabin. And so we're going to try to skip one of our stops, and hopefully that makes things a little faster. Just left the town of McDonough, Georgia, and I am trying my best to pronounce it right as Zach laughs at me. I had to Google it because apparently I believe the locals call it McDonough, but the people from out of town call it McDonough, and it's been mispronounced so much that a lot of people now call it McDonough. But from what I've read, the locals call it McDonough, so we will call it McDonough, Georgia. And we put 170 miles back on the car. It was our first stop of the day. It was also lunchtime, so we fed the girls at a Culver's nearby. And it took us 30 minutes. Everybody was fed, and now we're back on the road.
So here we are at the Tifton Supercharger. We're actually the only car remaining. There were 2 other cars. This one's 150 kilowatt max, and so you got to pay attention to the stalls. There's the 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, so you can see those are not next to each other. So in order to avoid sharing the cabinet with someone else, you need to make sure that you don't have 2 people plugged in to the same number, 2 or 3, and for some reason 5A and 5B are together here on the end. So it did affect us initially. I maxed out at 148 kilowatts when we first started charging. However, we stopped here for the kids to use the restroom, grab Starbucks anyway. So in the end, really wasn't too big of a deal. Would have impacted us more if we had to share, if it was a busy supercharger.
We just left the Tifton Supercharger. We put 200 miles on the car. It took us 41 minutes to charge because we took the kids to the bathroom, and that always really slows us down. We picked up some food at the Starbucks, and we will say that the Supercharger, though it emptied out and it was in a nice location right off the highway, it was pretty slow with being an older charger.
150 kilowatts, so we capped out at the beginning.
And it was sharing, we were sharing.
We didn't need to share.
We didn't have to share. Oh, that's right. Nobody was in the same charging. Same number, so. But had it been busier, that would have been really bad. So just something to keep in mind when you're traveling. If you can get the 250, that's better. We stopped there on purpose because of the kids. And so it did slow us down a little bit. So hopefully that'll be our last stop, and we should be able to make it home with 19% of our battery.
Plenty to spare.